Hello and welcome to this episode of 4 Hour Liberation. So, this is my second episode in this iteration of the podcast and also my second recording of this episode. So, I recorded first time round, and then reflected and realized that I had sugarcoated things a little bit, been a bit too polite in what I really wanted to say. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to record again. I'm going to reflect and record again. So here I am. So today's episode is going to be about doing life differently. The fact that we need to do life differently. And I wanted to share what that means to me and why I think we need to do life differently. And then in subsequent episodes, I'm going to dive a little bit more deeply into each of the themes, the topics that I'm going to talk about today. So where did this all start? Let's start there for me. So a little bit of background, history, my history. So I had a very traditional upbringing, religious upbringing, be a good girl, follow the rules, etc., etc. Also, once I got into high school, became very academic, was definitely validated for getting the good grades, and really started to evaluate my worth based on the grades that I was getting, and also got a certain amount of safety and security from that educational system. Came to the time to go to university, and really what I wanted to do was be a dancer, but I did not have the talent to be a dancer. I could have gone and learned to be a dance teacher, but at that stage in my life, I didn't really want to be a dance teacher, and I didn't kind of have anybody around me who was able to say, well, this could be a way into the dance world, to choreography. I always loved doing choreography. And so I kind of parked that idea as, okay, this is not sensible. It's not going to make me much money. And my decisions about the career that I decided to follow were really based on not my own satisfaction, but based on how much money is it going to bring me, with the belief that if I were to get a job that paid me really, really well and succeed, in inverted commas, that would bring me freedom. But I think underneath that was kind of safety and security that I was looking for as well. So I decided to do a subject that I was pretty good at. So I went to study French at university, ended up really being French literature, spent a year in France, which was challenging in terms of I really improved my French, and really experienced a different place, a different way of life. So I'm very, very glad that I did that. And then the fact that I spoke French really catapulted my career. I didn't not come out and go straight into a highly paid job like some graduates. I just didn't really fit any kind of mold. So I found myself a job as a translator. Very quickly realized that I was going to die of boredom if it was just me, a computer, and a dictionary for the rest of my life. And then decided, okay, what could I do that would kind of amalgamate, combine my linguistic skills with business and a way to work internationally and to make good money. And what I came up with was accountancy. Kind of already had this idea of accountancy based on the fact that I was sport mad when I was younger and really wanted to go and work in a football club and become like chief executive of a football club, which now I think, my God, that must be like a ridiculously stressful job. Why would you want to do that? But wanted to work in sport, and we had a family friend who had got into that world through accountancy. So I thought, okay, I'll go and train to be an accountant. I had zero interest in accountancy. I was pretty good at maths at school, so fine, I could do it. So I got entry level job. I knuckled down. Again, I didn't really fit the mold, so I found it quite hard to find my place. Knuckled down and completed my accountancy qualification. But before I'd even completed that qualification, I was kind of poached by the head office of where I was working because I spoke French. And so I ended up working on IT projects, even though I was like really inexperienced. I just kind of said yes to the opportunity. Anyway, I ended up working in really big IT projects for multinational corporations. And initially, I really enjoyed it. I got to travel about 50% of the time. I was interacting with a lot of people. I was learning new things. But I hit about 30, so kind of for those of you who are into your astrology, around about my Saturn return. And the wheels kind of started to come off in both my professional and personal life. I had quite a traumatic relationship experience and relationship breakup. And I just started to question things and started to really recognize, okay, this freedom that I thought was going to be at the other end of career success has not happened. Um, I managed to buy myself a really, really small flat and really stretched myself beyond the max. I got myself into quite a lot of debt and found myself trapped in this job that paid me a lot of money. And I was like, oh, I can't leave. I can't go and do something else because I'm kind of tied into this this level of financial reward that I'm getting from this job. But it was giving me less and less satisfaction. There was very little satisfaction in the work that I was doing, especially as I really started to recognize that I was a bit like the Grim Reaper. I would roll into town, or not just me, but the team that I was working with would roll into town. And I knew that that meant that a lot of the people that I was working with, who we needed help from in order to transition from one system to another, were actually going to lose their jobs because this was like one of the main aims of the company's strategy was, okay, we implement a new, more efficient IT solution, and therefore we can cut heads. Such a horrible way of saying it. We can reduce our staff costs. And it just felt off. It felt wrong. And I just wasn't getting the satisfaction. And I was getting more and more stressed because I had been so good at what I did, so compliant, and just I drunk the corporate Kool-Aid, so to speak. If you listen to the first episode, I was a raging little capitalist, and my internal capitalist kept me right on track. I was perfect. I was every corporation's dream. Um, but that I'm discovering and have discovered is not my natural inclination. It's not who I truly, truly am. And the veil was beginning to lift on this idea that we are all sold that you just work hard enough, you can make it. Like you can get the mortgage, you can have the house, you can have the car, you can have the holidays. And, all of these things kind of keep us tied into the financial binds that we're in and keep us needing to earn that same level of money and stay on this hamster wheel, treadmill, whatever you want to call it, that is modern day consumerist life. Um, I was really beginning to recognize that. And so I decided, okay, it's time to make a change. I'm going to do something different. Worked with a life coach myself and looked at all the different things that I could possibly do. And I thought, actually, coaching could be good. I could help people. I'm sure I could make a good business out of coaching. Um, that would give me freedom. I wouldn't be working for somebody else. I've never, ever done well with having a manager. I don't know about you. Listening to this podcast, I am kind of unmanageable. Yeah, so I thought, okay, this could be the path to go down. But again, the coaching qualification did not feel right. in my bones. I do think it was absolutely the right thing for me to do in terms of my own personal growth and personal development. Um, but in terms of becoming a coach, just never really quite sat with me. I feel like now I'm like, okay, I think I'm a teacher, maybe with a little bit of coaching thrown in, but I feel like I'm more of a teacher than a coach, a mentor teacher. Um, anyway, so I burnt out basically. I'd burnt out kind of, I was well on my way to burnout when I decided to add on top of my full-time job that had become more demanding, as I said, because I was so good at what I did. And they gave me more and more and more projects to do. And even when I put my hand up to say, I can't cope, this is too much, they would just say, oh, you just need to organize yourself better. Um, which was not true, to be honest. I'm not to say that I couldn't have been more organized, but it was not the truth. I had too much to do. They were asking too much of me. Um, and I just had this realization, again, I'd added the coaching qualification on top of my work, which is already quite demanding and stressful. I'd kind of made the decision when I took on the coaching qualification, okay, something's going to have to go because I can't do everything. And foolishly, I made the choice that, okay, that's going to be like my training regime and my super duper eating habits. I'm not going to be able to maintain those at the same time as working full time and doing this coaching qualification. There was probably something else behind letting go of taking good care of myself as well, I think. Well, I won't go into that now, but basically it was like just a combination of factors that all worked together in a perfect storm that meant I ended up being burnt out. And by the time I quit corporate at the end of 2015 and I never wanted to work again. I was like, I just don't want to work ever again in my entire life. But I was going to have to make some money somehow. Kind of went down a property route bizarrely for some reason, which again didn't feel like the right thing to do. Ended up coming back round to the coaching, but could never really get it off the ground again. Just didn't really feel congruent. And also, I was burnt out, like 100% burnt out. And I hadn't done anything to fix that. And I wasn't even aware that that was the case. And so the time that I had planned to spend building a business actually got spent going around in circles, realizing my health was in dire straits, trying to figure out what was wrong with me and starting to put some fixes in place, but never really getting to the bottom of fixing the nervous system issue that I'd created, or that had occurred because of various factors. And so then spent 3 years, I think I earned about £80 in 3 years and got myself into quite a financial pickle that I only didn't go bankrupt because I had the support of my family, my parents, and eventually got a job back in corporate that gave me enough money to just about survive. So yeah, that was, okay, I burnt out and then, 3 more years of extreme stress. So overall, I think I probably had at that point yeah, 7 or 8 years of chronic stress and burnout stored up in my body, but with no real way of fixing it because I was back in the corporate, back in the job that I had decided I never wanted to do again. And don't get me wrong, it was an absolute blessing to be able to go back in and to make the kind of money that I made and make now, as I'm still working for the corporation. 100% a blessing, and I'm very, very grateful for it. But yeah, it was and has been a long, long period of stress, basically. And since I've kind of picked up the coaching side of things again, the podcasting, thinking about life, and I've really been diving into like the environmental situation that we face ourselves in, that we see ourselves in, the just the general way of life, the health of people that we see around us, the declining health, the increasing instances of disease, um, financial situation that so many of us find ourselves in, and like something was not adding up for me, you know. I was quite deeply into, again, the personal growth and the wellness practitioners and all the wellness trends and things that you could do to thrive and increase your longevity, which is another topic I'm going to cover on another day. And you know, all these people saying, you know, I made it, you know, I'm self-made, you can do it too. And I would just look out my window and think, like, something's not right. We're missing something here. All of these things that we're being told to do, especially in the wellness realm, are sticking plasters. We're trying to put a sticking plaster on something without fully understanding the root cause, and therefore without looking at um, what the actual solution to the actual problem is. And I just came to this realization one day, just popped into my head, like, we have to do life differently. Like, we cannot continue down this path and expect to be well and expect to live fulfilled and happy lives. It's just, these things are mutually exclusive. Um, and so, yeah, wanted to share with you today what I feel like doing life differently is. And also just, you know, as I said in my intro, I felt I was being too polite in the original version of this episode. And so, yeah, what I recognized that I hadn't said was we've been sold a lie. We are being gaslit, basically, on a daily basis, whether it's by the corporations, whether it's by the wellness influencers. Um, like, I personally believe, maybe this isn't your belief, we cannot thrive in the current system or systems. It's just not possible. Like, there was a book that came out a few years ago, you might be aware of it, called The Miracle Morning. It was like, just get up at 5 a.m., do this for 10 minutes, and that for 20 minutes, and this, and then that, and then this, and then that. And that's how you're going to be successful if you live your day like this. And I'm always very suspicious when there's somebody's telling me that there's a one way to do things and that that one way is really regimented and rigid. Who wants to live their life like that? Like, I certainly didn't. That certainly ignited the rebel in me. I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing that. Like, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me that this is the only way to be successful. And then we have to have a look at what is our definition of success anyway. Life cannot possibly be about getting up at 5 a.m. to do all of these things just in order to be okay. And in order to have any chance of potentially beating the system at its own game. Like, if we just sit and think about that for just a minute, it's not logical. It's not what we were put here for. Again, this is a realization I had when I decided I wanted to change careers, and I would look around me and see people thoroughly miserable in their jobs, hating it. I think the stat back then was about 70% of people don't like their job. And I think the stat now is about 50% of people are disengaged. And people will say, well, it's just not realistic. You know, that's just the way the world is. But that's not how I operate. I am like, okay, that is not just the way the world is. That's the world, how the world that we have created is. But that doesn't mean it's the only way. It's not the only way of doing life. And don't get me wrong, it's tricky to do things in a different way when the systems around you are all set up for you to keep going down that road, stay on that hamster wheel, stay on that treadmill, because that benefits the corporations, basically. It benefits the elites, it benefits the systems and structures that are in place to keep us all in check, in line, being good girls and boys, and yeah, just making more money for the very, very rich people. Ultimately, that's what most of us are doing. We're making somebody else's fortune rather than our own. Not to say that I think every single one of us needs a fortune. We don't. But yeah, that was where I was kind of censoring myself a little bit in that first episode. I realized I hadn't said that I feel like we're being gaslit. Like, we're being told that if you do all these things, then you can live this amazing life, but it's just not fucking true. So, okay, where do we start then with doing life differently? Well, I think the first step is to recognize like we physically cannot do all of the things. Like people used to say, maybe not so much anymore, oh, Beyonce has the same number of hours in a day as you do. And I would say, well, bullshit. She doesn't because she has staff. Like, she has staff doing things for her. Most of us don't have staff. We have to do our own washing, our own cooking, our own cleaning, our own life admin. Yeah, so there just aren't enough hours in the day. And we find ourselves, I find myself, oh, if only I had like a 48-hour day or a 14-day week. And yeah, there's just no way to live. It's just not how I want to live, and hence how I came round to this idea of doing life differently. So I think the first part of doing life differently is okay. We need to grieve for the life that we believed, had been convinced was possible for us, and let go of that illusion that we can do and be everything and stay sane and stay healthy. It's not possible. It's just not. There's a consequence, right? Again, people still now, my colleagues will say to me, "Oh, you can do that project because you've got capacity for that." As in, you can take it. You can take a lot. Like you can have a lot on your shoulders and cope with it. Well, that's not true. My nervous system has proved that to me. It is not true. And I am learning as I start to get better acquainted with my nervous system. Still a long way to go. But I am learning that I don't have the capacity that I thought I had to push myself and push myself and push myself, and especially not in areas of life and doing things where I don't feel satisfied, where it's not lighting me up, it's not adding to my satisfaction. So, first thing, we got to grieve the life that we were told that we could have. We cannot be everything. We cannot do everything. There will be some things in life that we just never get round to doing. Places that we never get round to going. Things that never get cleaned. Cupboards and drawers that never get tidied. Unless you want to go down the whole Swedish death cleaning route, which, I might go down one day when I have, if I decide that that is a priority. And that this is what my next point is going to be, is how do we decide, how do we let go of things? Well, we have to decide what is a priority for us and what is not. I think it's Stephen Covey who has that quote about the key is not to prioritize your schedule, it's to schedule your priorities. So the first things that go into your calendar, into your days, into your life, those are got to be the things that are your priorities. And then the rest, it's a bit uncomfortable to say it, but we will spend a lot of our time saying, I don't have time for that. Oh, I'm just too busy. I haven't got time. I didn't have time. Truth is, it's not a priority. Like, there are many things in your life that you are doing and you do have time for because you've prioritized them or they are a priority. So when you start to say that instead, like it's not a priority rather than I don't have time, that really gets you thinking, or at least it gets me thinking. I'm not going to suppose to know what you think, but it gets me thinking, okay, hang on a minute. What am I prioritizing then? Like, how many hours a day am I spending scrolling on Instagram, looking at other people's posts and other people's ideas? How many hours a week am I watching a Netflix show? These things matter. They're not inconsequential. They contribute. They contribute to a life well lived. I can make that choice to watch one more episode, or even to watch a couple of episodes in an evening, or I can make the choice to read one of the 11 million books that I have bought and seem to think that are going to somehow I'm going to take them all in through osmosis or something, because yeah, I never seem to get around to reading them. But if I weren't watching TV, not that I do a lot of that, but if I weren't scrolling on Instagram, I could be reading those books, or I could be giving myself the space to actually allow my own thoughts and my own ideas to come through instead of relying on external sources all the time to tell me what to think, to tell me what to wear, to tell me how to look, to tell me what to do. And I honestly think if most of us could just divest from social media, and all of the inputs that we're fed, that we would have so much more time for the things that really, really mattered. And that is a part of doing life differently. Do we really want to get to the end of our lives, look back and say, that was time well spent? Those 4 hours a day spent on social media, yeah, I'm happy with that. Happy that that's how I spent my one wild and precious life. I don't think so. We've just been sucked in by corporations who are making money from us. Facebook, like Meta, Google, Apple, all of these companies, they don't produce their products for our benefit. They Their products are there in order to make money, in order to profit from us. Like, we don't use Google. Google uses us. That's why it's free. It's not free. We are the product. Um, so we have to really start recognizing, where am I giving my power and my life force over to corporations, people, whatever it is, who really don't give a damn about me and who just want to profit from me. Actually, we should be focusing our time and our efforts and our energy on our own lives, cultivating the lives that are truly satisfying to us. Nobody is satisfied by scrolling on social media, or maybe watching a really, really good film or a really, really good TV show, but how many of them are actually really, really good? Like, honestly, I'll go on some of the streaming services and think, is there a need for this much content? I don't think so. How much money are we spending on this? How many resources are being used? Yeah, so that was my one of the ways of doing life differently. So we have so far, we need to grieve and let go of the things that we are just never going to get around to doing, accept that we can't be and do everything. Really get conscious about where we're spending our time, and do we really want that to be how we spend our one wild and precious life? And then let's talk about our health. Most of us are not in a great place health-wise, whether it's because we've burnt out, or whether it's because, we have not been taking great care of ourselves, probably because we're on the hamster wheel. We are so busy keeping up with the Joneses, keeping up with all the things that we're supposed to be doing, ticking all the damn boxes, that we ourselves are left to as an afterthought. Like, we're squeezing in taking care of ourselves in between all of the other things. Now, I don't have kids, so I fully accept that as a parent, that's kind of how it goes, at least for the first however many years, to a certain degree. But if we think about it, in the past, we would have had community, a community around us to help share the load of the childcare. And yet now we're just so separated. And again, it really, really suits capitalism for us to be living such individual, separated lives because then we need all of the convenience and the products and the services that capitalism wants to sell us. Um, so if we think about health, again, there is an element of, okay, what are we going to have to let go of in order to prioritize our health? There are so many things external to us that are going to challenge our health, you know, with the pollution, the toxins that seem to be in everything, um, that we really need to be vigilant about taking care of our health. I don't mean obsessive, because that is going to add a stress that is probably going to counteract anything good that you're doing, but just vigilant about, okay, sleep. How many hours sleep am I getting? How many do I need? How many am I getting? What's the quality of that sleep? You know, if we're drinking alcohol, if we're drinking a lot of caffeine, that is going to hinder the quality of the sleep that we're getting. So we might think that we're falling asleep fine, but we're not actually getting that proper deep restorative sleep. And how do you put some boundaries around your sleep time? How much blue light are your eyes receiving in the hours before you go to sleep and when you wake up, you know, really getting conscious of our circadian rhythms and the fact that we are built to work with nature, not against it. And yet, most of us on a day-to-day basis barely have any contact with nature, and it is doing us damage. You know, so in the past year or so, I have started grounding. I go outside, I ground on the grass, tiny patch of grass outside my flat, but I will get out there and I will ground because I know that it is necessary for my well-being. Again, I will go into more detail on this in future episodes. Sleep. I have my blue blocking glasses that I wear before going to bed. Um, I turn off my Wi-Fi at night. I make sure I'm super caffeine sensitive. So if I want to sleep well, I know that I have to consume no caffeine. Also, the other foods that you're consuming. So all of these things to make sure that you're getting a good night's sleep. Because to be honest, again, I don't want to speak for the rest of you, for everybody, but if I don't get a good night's sleep, I am super existential in the morning. Like, life is not worth living. What is the point? Maybe one of the reasons why I just never really wanted children, because my body knew this woman cannot cope without sleep. Um, and then the food that we're consuming as well is just vitally important to make sure that we're cooking as much as we can from scratch, looking at the ingredients on things, using the Yucca app if you don't have that app, Yuka. It's a great app. It tells you what's in things. It tells you when there's an additive that is potentially carcinogenic in the food that you're eating. We have to, again, divest from this idea that the corporations, the food companies have our best interests at heart. They do not. They want to make as much profit as they possibly can to give to their shareholders. They do not care at all whether the food that you're consuming is good for you or not. What they care about is that you're going to buy more of it and they're going to make it more addictive. And again, if you haven't yet, do go and read Chris Van Tulleken's book, Ultra Processed People. It's eye-opening and it really helps to put the power back in your hands. You know, make things from scratch where you can. Just be conscious of what you're putting inside your body. It is fuel. Like, how we haven't made this connection, I don't know. And I still don't make that connection sometimes, that what I put in my body has an effect on my body, and on how well I function, and on my mood. All of these things are so impacted by the food that we take in, and hydration. You know, we have to be really focused on staying hydrated. So all of these things around our health, food, sleep, time outdoors, They are a kind of rebellion. They're a rebellion against the system to be making things from scratch, getting your produce, your meat and your eggs and dairy, if you're still consuming it, from local farms. You know, I get my eggs delivered from a local farm rather than buying from the supermarket. But when I have the time, I go to a farm shop. Again, this is another reason we need to do life differently because I can imagine that many of you listening are saying, like, who's got the time to cook everything from scratch? It does take time, it takes planning, it takes organization. And this is why, again, we have to recognize we can't do all the things and be all the things and stay on that hamster wheel and be okay. We need to take care of our health, and that takes time. And I think letting go of the idea of success that we have been fed is definitely one of the ways to do life differently. Like I said, disconnecting from the devices, um, disconnecting from the measures of success that we have been fed by capitalism. Okay, maybe you've got a really nice car and a really big house, but if you're mortgaged to the hilt and super stressed and forced to stay in a certain job because of that, is that really success? Is that really satisfying to your soul? I have another episode coming up with a lady called Sean Nicole, and on that episode, we're going to talk about our souls and satisfaction. And I really am feeling into that more and more. What brings my soul alive? What brings me joy? That's what's important, not somebody else's definition of what success is. Because that definition of success was created in order to keep us compliant and obedient and producing. Because unless you are a CEO of a company or whatever, you really are just increasing the wealth of the already very wealthy in most of the jobs that we do. So we have to kind of start thinking about ourselves more, about our own success and our own prosperity. And I feel like we need to move away from this idea of abundance to enough. If you're in the personal growth, personal development field or into any of that, there's a lot of talk of abundance. And while there are some things in life that are abundant, not everything is. And do we actually need an abundance of everything, or would enough be okay? And would enough actually be less stressful than abundance? I certainly feel like the idea of enough, it really ties in with the idea of satisfaction. And it kind of, I can feel myself just relax into that. So what would be enough for you in whatever area of life that you want to think about? Rather than striving for more, more, more all the time. Do you need more? Is it going to make your life better? Or is it actually going to make your life worse? Is that constant striving for more making your life worse rather than better? And to add to that, so we've kind of plodded along, not really recognizing that every dollar, pound, euro, whatever that exists in the world is a financial claim on resources. Now, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that there is no money out there floating around that is not connected in some way to a physical resource, an Earth's resource. And so if we just keep on printing more and more money and growth, 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 growth. This is what we see the economists talking about, the politicians talking about. It's always about growth. We need to grow more, we need to grow more, we need to grow more. But that means more money is needed to keep that system rolling. And again, I will do another podcast on this in more detail. I need to do some more research and really make sure that I'm expressing this and sharing this information in a coherent way. But ultimately, every, as I said, pound, dollar, euro, etc., is a claim on a physical resource, and our resources are running out. Like we don't, the earth cannot sustain the demands that we are putting on it in terms of resources. We know this. We know this from all of the climate emergency information that is out there. You know, some people are saying we've got 10 or 15 years until a great simplification is coming. So one of my favorite podcasts is Nate Hagen's The Great Simplification. Go and look that up. It's amazing. It has opened my eyes to so many things, and especially opened my eyes to the idea that unless we do life differently now, unless we choose to simplify our lives, to separate ourselves, disconnect ourselves from this idea that we can grow, 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 grow exponentially, that we can have more, 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 and still be okay, and for the earth to still be okay, for the planet to still be okay. Like we have to disconnect ourselves from those ideas in order for humanity to survive. I guess this is the crux of everything. I can talk about taking care of your health, doing things that bring you satisfaction, you know, satisfying your soul. Ultimately, like humanity is going to be in dire straits. It probably already is. But if we don't choose to actually simplify our lives, then the choice is going to be made for us. Like, we're going to have to. We're not going to be able to have and maintain all of these complex supply chains. We're simply not going to have the resources to do a lot of things, to make a lot of things in the years to come. And yeah, surely it's better to simplify through choice than it is to simplify through necessity. So that is one of the things that I am focusing on in my own life is, okay, have I created a really complex life? How can I simplify that life? How can I live a life that draws as little as possible on the earth's resources? So being very conscious about the food that I'm eating, where I'm getting it from, how it's packaged, that is definitely one of those things. But also just being really conscious about what I'm consuming. Again, I'll probably do a whole separate video on this, but doing life differently means consuming less. Do we really need to consume everything that we're consuming? Probably not. You know, I'm very conscious now when I get an email from a clothing company telling me that it's a new season and I must have something. I'm like, well, don't you fucking tell me what I must have for a start. Ignites my inner rebel. Why must I have it? Why must we have it? Why do we need like 2 or 3 new seasons of clothes every single year? It's just, it's not necessary. It's also very, very detrimental to the environment. Like the fashion industry is actually far more damaging to the environment than aviation. One of the most damaging industries that there is, and also not necessary. You know, if we buy good quality, ethically made as far as possible, some will say that there is no such thing as sustainable fashion. I'm kind of inclined to go along with that, but as sustainable and ethical as we can. And if we repair things, like the jeans I'm wearing now, I've had them repaired instead of buying brand new. There's also a liberation in that. It's another way of doing life differently and rebelling against the system, right? If we all just decide, I don't need to buy all those things, whether it's clothes, makeup, beauty products, whatever it might be. Not to say buy nothing and be so totally frugal and live the life of a, a hermit. But there's a liberation in taking back that power and being like, I don't need to buy anything. Actually, my money can stay in my bank account instead of being given to a multi-million, billion-dollar corporation. Because that's what they want. They want you to consume in order for them to grow and increase their profits. Why do they need to keep growing? Again, a future video, talk about the idea of degrowth. If you want to go and look it up, the economist Jason Hickel, who talks about this extremely eloquently. Like, we have to start recognizing we can't keep growing, 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 more, more, more. And I personally am I'm finding it quite liberating to say I don't need anything else. I'm just going to wear the clothes that I've got. I'm going to get them repaired. I'm going to take care of them, look after them. Um, because that frees me up. I am less financially bound to the system. The more the more I consume less is what I was going to say, but the less I consume, um, the more freedom that I have is definitely one of the other ways that I look at doing life differently. The less I consume, the more freedom I have. So yeah, maybe that's something that you would also like to add into your arsenal. Um, and becoming more self-sufficient, maybe it's like you want to go and learn a skill. I think as life needs to simplify in future, we are actually all going to need some kind of skill and a community where we can exchange skills. Um, I don't have any skills. I can barely even sew up a hole in a sock. So maybe my thing is to go and learn how to sew so I have that skill and I can repair my own clothes, and can help other people to repair their clothes as well. Um, if you've got a garden, start growing some of your own food. You know where it's coming from. You have control over it. You can eat seasonally then instead of buying in green beans from Egypt or wherever it might be. Um, we have to start we have to start thinking about these things. Like I said, either we choose simplification or it's going to be forced on us. And there is liberation in simplification. That is, I think, what I'm going to leave you with today. Um, there's liberation in simplification, and just reflect on the idea of success that you are aspiring to, and see if you can determine whether that actually aligns with your life satisfaction, your soul's satisfaction, or whether it aligns with enabling corporations to amass more and more wealth whilst the rest of us are kind of stuck not making the money that we need to survive, not being able to survive in the system that we are currently living in. Um, so yeah, there's liberation in simplicity, and just check in with your definition of success. Is it aligned with your soul, or is it somebody else's definition? And could you start doing life differently? What would it mean to do life differently? How would life improve if you were to do life differently? Because we kind of have to. Like, most of us, yeah, all of us eventually, even the billionaires with their underground bunkers that they're building. What is it? Something, I think Mark Zuckerberg's on Hawaii, which is an interesting place as sea levels rise to put a bunker. But anyway, for like $100 million or something crazy. Even they're going to have to do life differently. Nobody gets out of this situation. I guess you could send yourself to Mars, but I don't see it being any better up there than it's going to be on Earth. So anyway, rambling now. So yeah, there's liberation in simplification, I think, is the message for today. And that is what doing life differently means to me. So Hope there was some value in that for you. I hope it's ignited your rebel as well. Um, yeah, we're all going to have to be rebellious in the years to come. Um, and I think that's quite a fun way to look at things. So here's to our collective liberation through rebellion. I'll see you next time.